Discover the inspiring moment. She uncovered a frozen leopard mother at 71 degrees, a truly transformative discovery. The wind howled like a fierce beast, reminding Dr. Claire Thompson that she was not just in Siberia, but far from home and her father's long shadow. With each step on the unforgiving ice, she felt every doubt claw at her. Would he ever understand that wildlife was her adventure? Would he ever approve of the scientist she had become? As the landscape stretched endlessly before her, Claire's heart raced, not from excitement but from the weight of unfulfilled intentions. The biting cold seeped through her layers, igniting an inner tempest. The grant had promised much: recognition, respect, maybe even the chance to make her father proud. But as the storm grew fiercer, she felt the suffocating grip of inadequacy tightening like a vice around her chest. How could she prioritize her research in the face of such peril? Gathered around the campfire, her team exchanged laughter, a melody of camaraderie that felt foreign yet alluring in the desolate wilderness. They looked to her for guidance, but Claire's mind spiraled. She hesitated to acknowledge their dependence on her. What if something went wrong? Would they blame her for putting ambition above their safety? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The next day, Claire led them deeper into the wild, each frigid breath a reminder of the stakes. They navigated jagged ice formations and gusting winds, every shivering moment taut with tension. And then, they found it, a female leopard, perfectly preserved, an emblem of resilience trapped in time. Claire knelt beside the stunning relic, but a heaviness settled within her. This was not just a striking find, it symbolized the extinction of a lineage, the bitter echo of nature's fragility. Was this why she fought so hard for her father's respect? To illuminate a world on the brink? The icy tableau paralleled her own struggle. The world felt frozen in her relationship with her father, just as the leopard lay encased in ice. She wrestled with the conflicting desires within her. The academic triumph was dazzling, yet with it came the haunting worry that she might never bridge the emotional gulf between herself and the man who had once roamed the unknown, leaving her confined to science while he chased adventure. Staring at the magnificent carcass, Claire's thoughts spiraled into chaos. Would bringing back groundbreaking research finally gain her father's admiration? Or had she sacrificed too much, risked too many lives for it? As a tempest brewed in the sky, Claire stood at the crossroads, faced with a choice that extended beyond the dire weather. This journey came with an intrinsic value, one that transcended mere accolades and drew from the deepest wells of family. The howling winds were no longer just a backdrop, they became the voice of her internal turmoil, and with each gust, the stakes rose higher, whispering an ultimatum. Either she forsakes discovery for allegiance to her team, or embraces her role as both scientist and daughter, risking everything to reshape her legacy. The sun struggled to break through the dense clouds, casting a muted light over the frozen expanse. Claire's mind, however, was anything but dim. Each frigid gust whipped across her face, a constant reminder of the pressures weighing on her. As her team continued working, their excitement palpable at uncovering such a remarkable specimen, Claire felt an insatiable need to recalibrate her priorities. This was not only a milestone in her career but a potential turning point in her internal battle for recognition, both as a scientist and as a daughter. She stepped back from the excavation site, observing her team methodically documenting every detail. They moved with a focus that sparked envy. They seemed unburdened by the shadows of expectation that clung to Claire like a heavy cloak. Fear bubbled inside her, fear of failing to meet not only the outcomes of the research but their hopes as well. Would they capitulate to her doubts, or worse yet, would they come to see her as ineffective? Resolutely, she turned her attention back to the recently uncovered leopard, its glossy fur captured in time. The magnificence of the animal evoked a rush of inspiration within Claire. Each frozen hair served as a fierce reminder of nature's tenacity. and she felt the storm inside her quell, if only temporarily. There was urgency now, an undeniable shift that compelled her to harness this moment, to realize it was not solely about the accolades or her father's approval, but also about sharing the story of the natural world, about ensuring the gravitas of this discovery echoed beyond her. But what if she were to climb to new heights? The creeping sense of inadequacy transformed into a flicker of determination, a resolve to demonstrate her knowledge, not only to her team, but to herself. The whispers of doubt began to fade as a nascent strategy formed in her mind. It was time to embrace her role, to lead beyond the confines of the scientific method. Later that evening, Claire gathered her team around the campfire. As the flames flickered, casting shadows like an artist's brush against the icy backdrop, she took a deep breath and spoke. This leopard offers us more than data. It embodies a narrative of survival, an opportunity to understand how we fit within the ecosystem. We have a chance to tell a story that transcends science. The initial quiet shifted as nods of approval emerged. Her words acted as a catalyst, igniting a fire that mirrored the warmth of the flames. The camaraderie that had felt distant seconds earlier surged back, surrounding her with an energy that bolstered her confidence. As the night wore on, thoughts surged through Claire's mind, fueled by the collaboration blooming within her team. Could they work together to create a comprehensive study that not only highlighted academic findings, but also championed conservation? This wasn't just her journey. It was theirs as well, a collective mission to honor the life of the leopard. But there remained an undercurrent of concern. A gnawing feeling whispered warnings of the repercussions of such an endeavor. Would she again veer too far from what was expected? The path forward seemed laden with risks, and with each heartbeat, Claire sensed the tempest of uncertainty growing stronger. The night deepened, drawing them into its embrace, yet Claire felt the weight of impending choices bearing down. Every great discovery demanded a price, a challenge that tested one's resolve, and she now faced her own. As dawn approached, the wind howled with a renewed ferocity, echoing the turmoil within. Tomorrow would bring with it the chance to either ascend into greatness or descend into abject failure. Would Claire claim this moment for herself, hoping it led to a deeper understanding of both her professional passion and her complicated legacy? The question loomed large as she surveyed the never-ending ice, bracing herself for the confrontation between courage and doubt that awaited just beyond the horizon. The sun broke through the clouds the next day, illuminating the sight with a promising glow. Claire awoke to a transformed landscape, the ice reflecting beams of light that danced around her. It mirrored the dynamic shift occurring within her. She no longer felt a captive of her father's legacy, nor solely defined by her titles. Today, she would embrace her identity as a leader in her own right. Gathered around the excavation site, Claire presented a detailed plan, outlining not just the scientific metrics they would be pursuing, but the deeper narrative of ecological conservation that she wanted them to weave through their research. Her team listened intently, some scribbling notes, others nodding in agreement. She felt the warmth of their trust, which served as a buffer against her lingering insecurities. But a new doubt skittered across her mind. Was this grand vision simply too ambitious? As the day progressed, the team fell into a rhythm, tirelessly excavating and documenting. Claire moved about, engaging with each member of the team, ensuring they felt part of this shared mission. She recognized potential in everyone, from the new grad student with a keen eye for detail to the hardened field veteran with a wealth of practical experience. Suddenly, their combined expertise felt like a symphony, each note resonating toward the same purpose. Yet beneath this burgeoning unity lurked a beast of self-doubt that Claire had yet to confront. The siren call of perfectionism whispered in her ear. What if her vision was flawed? What if they discovered something significant, yet failed to communicate its importance effectively? As hours ticked by, she felt a mounting anxiety, a clock counting down to inevitable judgment, both from within and outside her team. During a break, Claire found herself standing before the leopard specimen, marveling at its preserved beauty, but also grappling with the responsibility that lay before her. She replayed the words of her father, always the pragmatist, dismissing any airy-fairy ideas about storytelling and science. But she also heard a counter-argument, that stories invite empathy, evolve facts into truths that linger in the hearts of others. Adjusting the strap of her pack, she understood that consciously integrating storytelling with scientific discovery could forge a different path, one that could elevate their research in ways sterile data could not. Rejuvenated, she decided it was time to dive deeper into this creative approach. The narrative would depend on concrete proof, but it must also evoke emotion. With her team assembled, she presented the idea of split working groups, one to handle the meticulous scientific documentation, while the other explored the broader impacts of their findings in a more imaginative manner. A spark of interactivity lit their eyes, an excitement bubbling that reminded her of the camaraderie fostered around the campfire. As afternoon shadows lengthened, Claire felt the pressure of her decisions intensify. Every strategic move she made in conjunction with their shared narrative could either inspire or alienate the community once their findings were revealed. Ultimately, the reflections of her father's expectations loomed insidiously in her mind, creating a disparity of ideals. The sound of the distant wind howling began to match the whirlwind rousing within her. Claire stood at the precipice, acutely aware that each choice she made had the power to illuminate her path or shroud her in doubt. She surveyed her team, determination awakening within her chest. They didn't just need her guidance, they needed the freedom to explore this new approach, together. Claire wiped the sweat from her brow and took a resolute breath, her thoughts coalescing into clarity. Today was not just a chance for personal achievement, but an opportunity to redefine what success meant beyond her legacy. A new confidence coursed through her, but she also noticed unfamiliar tension and excitement swelling within the bounds of leadership. And just as she prepared to set the next steps in motion, a sudden shrill yell pierced the frozen air, shattering the moment of focus. A promising lead to unknown discoveries had just emerged, but would it lead to breakthrough or chaos? The team surged with rapid energy, leaving Claire inching closer to the edge of uncertainty, where choices still hung heavy in the air. Claire's heart thudded in her chest as the excited voices of her team reverberated around the excavation site. The expression on the excavation lead's face, a mix of disbelief and exhilaration, compelled Claire to move quickly among them. Her ache for clarity momentarily overshadowed by the immediate need to assess what had triggered such fervor. "Over here!" called Alyssa, the grad student, her eyes wide and brimming with enthusiasm. Claire felt a jolt of anticipation as she approached the scene. A few feet away, there was a disturbance in the snow, the ground unearthed by a series of precise tools. As Claire leaned in closer, she could see something unusual peeking through the frost. There it was, an unmistakable outline of a leopard, perfectly preserved in the ice. "Is it a mother?" Claire whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "What we need to determine first is if it's even intact," interrupted David, her most seasoned colleague, kneeling beside her. He looked as if he had been offered a rare glimpse into the past and was reluctant to let it slip away. They carefully brushed off layers of ice and snow, revealing striking details that seemed to pulsate with life. The elegant curve of its tail, the delicate imprint of its paw, the haunting expression frozen in time. For a brief moment, Claire lost herself in the dreamlike quality of the scene, her professional instinct interwoven with the emotional weight of what they had uncovered. Yet, as the initial thrill began to settle in, doubt pricked at the edges of her exhilaration. What if this discovery became another symbol of her inability to bring the right vision to fruition? There were consequences to this find, layers of interpretation that could entangle them in the expectations of the academic world and the public alike. Taking a deep breath, she pulled herself back into the present. How would they communicate the implications of this finding? She had spoken so passionately about storytelling, yet at this moment, a new fear brewed within her that their interpretation would miss the essence of what they had just uncovered. "Let's divide the tasks. I want a group focused on analyzing the biological aspects, while another drafts the narrative detailing the historical significance to our ecosystem," she instructed decisively, masking the unease that her voice barely held together. As her team busily arranged themselves, Claire stepped aside, feeling the weight of her role crush her breathing. Each person was resuming their tasks with renewed energy, an energy that felt chaotic, almost reckless. Her heart raced at the hint of lost control. Were they prepared for the scrutiny this discovery would garner? The ground beneath her felt unsteady. Looming above the immediate excitement was the towering shadow of her familial legacy, looming like a specter. What if this shining moment became a further extension of her father's shadow? She needed to make sure they owned the narrative, yet the path seemed fraught with uncertainty. Moving away from the din of her brigade, Claire sought refuge in solitude, pressing her palm against the icy surface where the leopard was entombed. She talked gently to the creature, vowing to respect its story amidst the clamor of data and analysis. A thought flickered to life. Could this still be a pathway to redefine her identity? This moment could cement her in history as a leader who forged connections instead of merely a scientist bound by heritage. Lifting her gaze, Claire was surprised to notice Alyssa lingering a few steps away. "You okay?" she asked, concern knitting her brow. Claire hesitated, contemplating a modest version of her churned thoughts. "I just need to ensure we do this justice." Alyssa nodded. "Yeah, but I mean, look at what we have." Claire's resolve stiffened. This hadn't just turned into a discovery, but a crucible testing the limits of her leadership. The shared narrative needed to be inclusive of both biological and emotional truths of their findings. Their responsibility to the forgotten and to the community was paramount. As she prepared to return to the team, Claire understood that their best moments together may unfold, not just in the findings, but in how they fought to articulate those stories. In that split second, her fatigue gave way to a bold new ambition, fueled by a deeper purpose. Now charged with purpose, Claire smiled at the thrumming energy around her. With each minute that passed, she felt the pressure mounting, of expectations, her father's legacy, and the chaotic thrill to craft a new chapter. The weight of the past mingled with the possibilities of the present, but one thing became abundantly clear. The true challenge lay ahead, one that could redefine not only their research, but Claire herself. As she called the team together to share their vital insights, a sense of impending revelation loomed large. Would they rise to the occasion? Or would their ambition fracture under the expectations that awaited them beyond the ice? The chill in the air was deeper now, frigid enough to settle in Claire's bones. But what really sent shivers down her spine was the anticipation of a potential breakthrough. Her team appeared galvanized in their separate pursuits. Scholarly fervor was now palpable, electric. Yet beneath that current of excitement lingered insidious self-doubt that persisted like a shadow. Taking her position at the epicenter of their efforts, Claire tried to project unwavering confidence, but her voice wavered slightly as she said, "Let's hear what everyone has discovered so far." The team's collective eyes were wide. She noted their eagerness as they shared preliminary findings, standing not just as colleagues, but as part of a quest for understanding that transcended mere science. Alyssa was first to speak. "Preliminary biological analysis suggests it's a female, likely a hunting mother based on the wear of the teeth and the skeletal structure." Claire felt a flicker of relief. This was not just a discovery of an ancient creature, but potentially a narrative about survival, motherhood, and the ecosystems long past. David chimed in. "We might need to consider the broader ecological implications. What does this mean for the predators and prey in this historical context?" His wisdom weighed heavy as Claire absorbed his suggestion. It was one aspect she hadn't deeply delved into yet, but with each new angle she felt the burden of responsibility press more heavily against her chest. A pang of uncertainty racked her thoughts. Would analyzing this within its ecosystem's framework detract from the poignancy of their find? What kind of motherly sacrifice was buried within the ice's embrace? The discomfort of these questions drove her to action. "Let's put together a timeline of the environment at that time," Claire suggested, fervently pursuing this new direction. "We should explore the conditions leading to both her preservation and the climate shifts that may have contributed to this. It will help give life, real life, to what we've uncovered." As they dispersed back to their tasks, Claire took a moment to step back and recollect her thoughts. The swirling emotions of pride and the team's enthusiasm were all too quickly entwined with personal misgiving. What if her leadership style, so inclined towards collaborative engagement, faltered here? What if her fear of misrepresenting the findings undermined their credibility as researchers? Shaking off the bleak spiral, she chose to summon her courage, recalling her promise to the creature laid before them. They were about to unearth not just a biological specimen, but an entire narrative that had been forgotten for millennia. It was her calling to ensure that story was not only told, but celebrated. While pacing beyond the excavation site, Claire noticed Alyssa poking into a section of icy soil away from the main find. Curiosity piqued, she approached. "What do you have there?" Alyssa looked up, her voice trembling with excitement. "I think I've found something else. Possibly a fragment of an ancient bone or claw." Claire's heart raced at the potential richness of what they could unlock. But this discovery could also spell more complications. An extension of their narrative might plunge them into deeper scrutiny, more intense academic expectations. "What are you thinking?" Claire asked, needing to gauge the depth of Alyssa's conviction. "I think we should document it thoroughly. There could be significant implications for our understanding of predatory behaviors or interaction with other species," replied Alyssa, gesturing toward the find. Claire nodded, caught in the web of possibility. This was more than speculation. It was contributing to a vital history. But what would happen when the findings escalated beyond their control? This could not merely be another moment for the academic elite to debate, while the stories of these creatures faded into the background. The scent of conflict loomed in the air again. Everything depended on how they articulated these prospects. Claire needed to confront the potential threats and her own vulnerability, a leadership question that reached into her core. Could she be innovative enough to not only guide her team through the scientific complexities, but also navigate the public's expectations? Determined, Claire turned back towards the excavation, where the magnificent frozen leopard lay. With a renewed sense of purpose, she knew the real story was still waiting to be uncovered. It was time to face the challenge head-on, integrating her vision with the drift of her team's ambition. As she gathered herself and prepared to address the findings, she felt the weight of the next endeavor pressing down. With each pulse of anticipation, her heart raced at what they might discover, not just about the time long gone, but about themselves in this moment of reckoning. What truths awaited them in their search for understanding, and how far were they willing to go to ensure the story of the frozen leopard found its rightful place in history? The urgency pulsed through Claire as she faced the growing excitement among her team. The discovery of the claw might add layers to their research, but it also threatened her carefully curated narrative. As she walked back to her team, thoughts raced through her mind like a snowstorm. The tangible weight of responsibility pressed upon her. What if they lost control of the story? What if the data they uncovered led to misrepresentation? She could feel the icy tendrils of doubt creeping back in. "Somebody needs to take charge of documenting everything," Claire declared. Announcing it felt like clutching a lifebuoy in a sea of uncertainty. She turned to Alyssa, who was still studying the area around the newly uncovered fragment. "You're on the ground with this find. Ensure that every detail is logged. We can't afford any oversight." "Yes, I'll take photos, notes, everything," Alyssa replied, eyes shining with enthusiasm, but Claire sensed a flicker of anxiety beneath her excitement. Claire felt a pang of empathy. She too had ridden this roller coaster of highs and lows. Determined to keep the clarity of their purpose, Claire called a quick meeting to realign team expectations. As the members gathered around her, she noticed the resilience in their faces. Despite her own conflicting feelings, they seemed ready to push forward. "We're venturing into uncharted territory, literally and metaphorically," she began, crafting each word carefully. "This frozen leopard is more than just a scientific data point. It's a story waiting to be told. We owe it to this magnificent creature, and to ourselves, to ensure accuracy, integrity, and respect in every aspect of our findings." Claire watched as the team's expressions shifted from curiosity to resolve. They were in this together. However, her mind wandered to the consequences of their work. The academic community's expectations loomed large, and she worried about navigating those waters without steering her team into turbulence. As discussions of methodology began, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that a challenge was on the horizon. Just as Alyssa dove into documenting the recent find, Claire sensed another uncertainty brewing within her. Could she effectively balance the delicate interplay of scientific discovery with the emotional weight of their narrative? Was she using enough of her voice, or was she leaning too heavily on consensus? In the quiet of her thoughts, Claire heard David speak. The implications of our findings could redefine aspects of paleoecology. We need to not just present data, but bring a fresh perspective that draws from our unique discoveries. His words struck a chord within her, awakening her instincts as a researcher and a leader. Yet as she acknowledged her team's enthusiasm, a flicker of fear re-emerged. What if their innovative interpretation would lead to criticism? What if, instead of validation, they faced skepticism from those who traditionally dominated the discourse? Claire took a deep breath, contemplating her next move, grasping for wisdom in her uneasiness. "Let's think laterally," she proposed, determined to squeeze every drop of creativity out of their potential findings. What if we could include a public engagement aspect to our research to foster connection? The idea blossomed in her mind. This could be the bridge to not only present their data comprehensively, but to transcend the academic barriers that often separated their work from the general public. Her team leaned in, their attention peaked, and Claire felt the tendrils of anxiety receding. Perhaps by engaging in storytelling, they could explore new dimensions that would prevent their message from becoming just another dry academic report. Suddenly, a shivering gust of wind distorted their discussions, and Alyssa called out from her spot near the excavation. "There's more here. I think I've uncovered another piece." Claire's heart quickened with hope and dread in equal measure. Another discovery could bolster their narrative, but it could also deepen the scrutiny. That nagging worry twisted in her gut, but she pushed it aside. She needed to embrace this journey of discovery, for her team and herself. Keen to examine Alyssa's find, Claire made her way over, all senses alert. They were at the precipice of something monumental. With each layer uncovered, who knew how they might redefine not only the story of the ice-encased leopard, but the essence of their own research journey. With every step, Claire felt the thrill of possibility heighten. What could this new fragment bring to the larger story? The tension coiled tightly around her, propelled by the complex landscape of discovery and the conflicting emotions it stirred. This journey was far from over, and Claire steeled herself for what lay ahead. Would she find the courage to take the narrative into her own hands, or would the expectations of academia drag her down? As she crouched beside Alyssa, she caught her breath, wondering what secrets lay beneath the ice waiting to be unveiled. As Claire positioned herself closer to Alyssa, the cold air seemed to thrum with energy, vibrating with the weight of their discovery. She could hardly contain her excitement, but her mind quickly shuffled through potential scenarios. Another piece unearthed. The implications could be momentous, but so could the risks. "Let's take a look," Claire urged, her voice steady despite the clamor of apprehension within. Alyssa shifted aside to reveal a dark mass encased in ice, the contours hinting at something much larger than the claw previously found. The frozen artifact felt like a mirror reflecting her own apprehensions and aspirations. It was beautiful, yet fraught with the potential for misunderstanding and misrepresentation. Alyssa's hands trembled slightly as she brushed the ice off the surrounding area, exposing what seemed to be a jawbone. Claire's heart raced, a jawbone from the frozen leopard mother. The narrative began to morph in her mind, almost uncontrollably. This was not merely a scientific find. It was a glimpse into a world that had once thrived in conditions they could scarcely conceive. A story of survival that should be told with respect and precision. "Imagine the narrative impact," Claire said, her strategist's mind swimming with possibilities. "We're not just discovering fossils, we're uncovering layers of ecosystems that once existed. This can challenge the traditional views." "Exactly," David piped up, eyes reflecting the same fervor that ignited inside Claire. "We could explore how they adapted to such extreme conditions. Our work could ignite a dialogue even beyond paleoecology." A palpable energy surged through the team, and Claire momentarily marveled at their shared commitment. Yet with every spark of inspiration came her haunting doubts. The academic community would scrutinize them beyond measure. Would they be ready to face that critique? She felt the simultaneous pull of ambition and caution. Determined to stave off the whirlwind of fear, Claire focused on the task at hand. Let's ensure we document everything accurately, Alyssa. The details here matter more than ever. As Alyssa nodded earnestly, Claire felt a shift within herself, a burgeoning resolve that perhaps, just perhaps, she could be the one to bridge the gap between hard data and human narratives, turning cold numbers into whispers of life. Hours slipped by, and as night began to wrap around their field site like a heavy blanket, the icy winds outside transformed into gnawing chill in Claire's bones. They had continued to uncover fragments, each revealing a deeper connection to the ice that preserved them for eons. But with those fragments came mounting pressure, the burden to interpret every find without bias, and to uphold the integrity of their story. There's an ancient wisdom in these remains, Claire said during a team break, hoping to quell the internal disquiet raging within. As much as this is about the scientific method, we're also dealing with historical voices we can't ignore. The challenge is to give them life, to contextualize them for our audience. David nodded, but Claire saw uncertainty flash across his face. That's great. But what if we can't convince the establishment? They've always been skeptical of novel interpretations. What if they dismiss our work because it does not fit the conventional molds? The question hung heavily in the air, crashing against Claire's resolve. Would she ultimately allow fear of criticism to hold them back? Claire stood at a crossroads. Should she maintain a more conservative narrative to seek validation, or embrace a more nuanced, riskier path in her research? Determined to explore the depths of the discovery, Claire shifted the conversation back to the data. Every piece has to contribute to our narrative. We have to show how interconnected these lives were and that they thrived against all odds. It can redefine not just our understanding, but also our approach to science itself. That declaration lingered between them, ripe with both hope and challenge. Claire felt a flicker of determination reignite within, but doubt still lurked in the shadows. Later that evening, as Claire sat alone outside the tent, she reflected on their impact. Could their research transcend the confines of traditional academia? The stakes felt monumental. If they failed, it could not only shatter their collective dream but exacerbate her internal conflicts regarding authority and creativity. As the stars twinkled above, illuminating the once-hidden world beneath the ice, Claire understood that discovering the truth was only a part of the struggle. Articulating that truth required courage and innovation, qualities she was beginning to recognize within herself, yet on which she needed to rely further. With a renewed sense of resolve, Claire returned to the team, ready to guide them through navigating the challenges ahead. Little did she know, however, the shadows of doubt would rear once more, testing not only her leadership, but the very fabric of her convictions as new, unexpected challenges awaited. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed across the field, an indication of impending change. "Did anyone else hear that?" Claire asked, her heart pounding with a mix of curiosity and dread. As she turned to the others, a new ominous thought emerged. What could disrupt their discovery amidst the relentless northern wilderness? Claire's pulse quickened as the rumble echoed again, deeper this time, reverberating through the icy landscape. It felt like nature itself was breathing, a silent warning of what might come. The thrill of discovery collided head-on with an icy dread, rallying her instincts for danger. She turned to her team, their faces a mixture of anticipation and concern. "Let's move back inside. We can evaluate the possible implications later. Right now, safety first," she said, her voice commanding yet tempered by her own uncertainty. As they hurried back into the relative warmth of the tent, Claire felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. Their remarkable find, the jawbone of the frozen leopard, seemed overshadowed by the threat of nature's fury. What lay beneath the ice was extraordinary, but how they would present it had become an urgent concern. Inside, The atmosphere shifted from excited anticipation to latent anxiety. Claire took a moment to inhale deeply, grounding herself in the reality of their situation. She would need to transform their revelations into a cohesive narrative while managing the brewing uncertainty among her team. "First, we need to assess our data properly," Claire announced, her strategist's instincts kicking in. "Let's compile what we've documented so far and understand how it fits within the larger context." The team nodded, but their eyes were still clouded with a mix of hope and confusion. They began to sift through their findings, detailing each fragment, paleo-ecological implications, and environmental conditions of the time the leopard thrived. As Claire reviewed their notes, she felt a flicker of clarity amidst the chaos. Recognizing the gaps in their understanding, she swallowed her doubts and addressed her team. "We have a rare opportunity here, one that challenges existing frameworks and requires us to think beyond traditional narratives. We aren't just uncovering remains, we're uncovering a story of resilience and adaptation." She looked around at her colleagues, gauging their reactions. David interjected, "But what if the academic community rejects us? This isn't just data. It's a full narrative that contradicts established theories. They can be ruthless." Claire's heart sank, the fear lurking behind his words striking a nerve. It wasn't just a fear of failure, it was a fear of being unheard, dismissed. She clenched her fists, wrestling with the internal conflict. She understood that fear held the potential to silence innovation, but she had witnessed the power of genuine stories before. "David," she said, her voice carrying a resolve built from her own unhappiness with the status quo. "This narrative isn't just about the findings. It's about raising questions that provoke thought, not merely confirming existing beliefs. If we play it safe, we play ourselves out of a chance to inspire change." There was a pause, the tension thickening as Claire's words settled in. The quiet war against doubt weaved its way through the group, and Claire pressed forward, channeling her uncertainty into determination. "Let's ensure we're prepared for every scrutiny, anticipate the critiques, and be ready to uphold our interpretations with cold, hard evidence. We're not just leading a field study, we're reclaiming the narrative." With every word, she planted seeds of conviction in her colleagues, blossoming into something more resilient than the ice surrounding them. As they recalibrated their focus, Claire felt a sense of purpose surge within her, a new layer of leadership thickening around her. But deep inside, another roar echoed through her mind. Was she really prepared to battle the establishment? Would her determination hold when faced with the inevitable pushback from scientific purists? How far should she push this budding authority she felt awakening inside her? The rumble outside grew louder, and a thick cloud of anxiety swept over the tent again. Suddenly, it hit her. This wasn't just external noise, it was a metaphor for the larger challenges ahead. What if this means something more? Claire pondered quietly, her heart racing. Just as the environment was shifting, so was her understanding of her role within this project. But at that moment the ground shifted beneath them with a loud crack, causing the ice to tremble, and Claire knew. The foundation of their discovery was about to change, for better or worse. "What was that?" Alyssa shouted over the din. Claire's mind swirled, recognizing a critical choice loomed ahead. Should they press into the turmoil, or consider retreat? In the flickering light of their tense gathering, Claire understood that the path she chose next would not only define the fate of their research but also illuminate, once and for all, who she truly was becoming in this frozen wilderness. The air was charged with an unprecedented tension as Claire steadied her breath, the crack beneath them echoing like a call to arms. She felt the weight of her decisions crashing against her resolve, each choice looming larger with the growing unease around her. "Listen up!" Claire shouted, her voice rising above the whispers of doubt. "We're going to explore what's out there, but we must tread carefully. There's too much at stake." Her words were a rallying call, but inside, doubt and determination were engaged in a fierce battle. The team exchanged glances, but their anxiety didn't dissolve. Claire's instincts told her they needed reassurance, a plan that extended beyond immediate survival. "Allie, start documenting any further shifts in the ice. David and I will secure the perimeter." She took a moment to observe the resolute expressions on her colleagues' faces. It was a mix of fear and adrenaline, yet beneath the surface, Claire sensed excitement. They were on the brink of something monumental, the possibility of revelation intertwined with menace. As they moved outside, the icy wind cut through her layers, but Claire welcomed the sting. There was logic in chaos, an order in the raw elements of nature. Each gust seemed to carry a whisper of their endeavor, a sense of connection far beyond the frozen tundra. Yet it was accompanied by the rumble of tension. She could feel everyone questioning the path they were choosing to pursue. "Are you sure about this?" David asked, his voice merging with the howling wind. Claire hesitated, the crux of leadership weighing heavily on her shoulders. This was more than just field work. It was her vision against the graying boundaries of their discipline. "More now than ever," she replied, channeling the surge of conviction swelling within her. "But if my vision doesn't resonate, we might as well be ice, frozen in place. We have to be willing to challenge the established narrative of our findings, not just react to it." As they advanced, the ground groaned again, sending a shiver through the team. Claire's heart raced, anxiety mixing with the exhilaration of potential discovery driving her onward. She felt alive, a spark igniting within, urging her to confront her fears for the sake of understanding. They needed answers about the frozen leopard and its ecosystem, not just for their careers, but to shift the paradigms governing their field. Finally, they halted at a clearer patch of ice. The air around them hummed with anticipation. Claire knelt down, examining the sediment layers resembling pages in a book. "Look here," she said, her eyes tracing the markings. Each imprint was a clue. Every fissure could lead to new insights. Tension shifted to focus as her team leaned in. "Claire, this is revolutionary," Alyssa breathed, excitement lighting up her features. Claire felt a rush at the thought. What if they could rewrite parts of scientific history? Yet the self-doubt danced in the back of her mind, teasing her competence. Were they prepared to face the critics? The potential backlash loomed over them like a storm cloud, magnifying her insecurities. "Revolutionary, yes, but remember, every great idea meets resistance," she cautioned, her voice tempered yet resolute. "Our credibility rests on meticulous documentation. Let's make sure we collect evidence systematically to support our claims." As the team began to record their observations, Claire focused on her breathing, grounding herself. She was at the precipice of something profound, not just in their research but within herself. This was where she would redefine her limits, taking her first steps as a voice of defiance against a history that had too often silenced the new. But amidst the unfolding discoveries, she sensed the unsettling absence of connection to her own past, roots that had shaped her journey. Could she reconcile who she was with, who she aspired to be? Just then, another tremor rippled beneath them, shaking the very core of her emerging confidence. "Claire, look!" David shouted, pointing at a ripple of movement in the ice ahead, a surge both magnificent and threatening. The team collectively held their breath, aware that what they were hoping to unveil could be simultaneously transformative and perilous. Determined not to falter, Claire took a bold step forward. "This is it," she declared, her voice cutting through the growing storm as her heart thundered in her chest. "We'll face whatever comes next together." With that declaration, Claire understood. Both their journey and hers were about to intensify. The answer lay buried in the ice ahead, and so did the question of her capacity to embrace uncertainty and lead in the face of trials. The future had become a ledger of paradoxes, demanding answers, and yet harboring more questions that would test not just their research, but Claire's very essence. She squared her shoulders, feeling the weight of responsibility morphing into a fuel for fight. The ice thrummed an ominous beat beneath her feet. Just as she took another step forward, she sensed a shift in the atmosphere, and in that moment, uncertainty glimmered like an approaching storm, ready to breach their fragile resolve. Was she equipped to navigate through this chaos and emerge as the leader she was meant to be, or would the landscape claim her dreams along with its frigid secrets? With the air thick with anticipation and uncertainty, Claire hinged on the precipice of discovery and fear. The tremor beneath her was not just a warning from the earth. It pulsed through her very core, igniting both awareness and a relentless determination to push forward. Everyone, gather your thoughts. We need to prepare for rapid documentation and data gathering. This could be big, Claire directed, her voice a steady anchor amidst the roiling chaos beneath their feet. She felt the weight of their shared potential pressing in, the collective ambition aligning with the daunting challenges they faced. This was an opportunity not merely to uncover hidden truths about the ancient leopard, but to redefine what scientific exploration could mean. As they advanced cautiously to the newly exposed layer of ice, Claire's creative vision soared. Each new finding became a crucial chapter in a story waiting to be told. What if we consider how this creature thrived in an environment hostile to so many others? It wasn't just about survival. It was about adaptability, she contextualized, her words weaving a narrative that transcended academia. She wanted her team to see the poetry in their research, to find beauty within the raw data. Excitement flickered through their group. David raised an eyebrow. So you're arguing for a narrative that showcases resilience? It's risky. Risk is the only way to break the mold, Claire countered, her voice rising with a newfound vigor. To honor this ancient being, we need to adapt the storytelling approach to showcase not only the facts, but our reverence for this being's existence. It's about translating these findings into something relatable. She could see their hesitations begin to melt away, replaced with curiosity. They were becoming collaborators in a mission larger than themselves, a mission that held the power to ignite passion for conservation in ways sterile reports seldom achieved. It was exhilarating. As the sun dipped closer toward the horizon, a golden hue bathed the icy expanse, illuminating the ground they stood upon. Claire felt as if the universe conspired on their behalf, yet still, a lingering awareness of doubt echoed within her mind. How would their work stand up to criticism? Could they truly challenge established scientific discourse? Pushing aside the nagging thoughts, Claire rallied her team. We will lead a dual approach, hard data and heartfelt narratives. As we unearth more, I want each of you to also consider the stories behind the species. We need to champion the leopard, but also its world. Anticipation surged through them, people moving with fervor as they documented each new discovery, coaxed from the clutches of the ice. Claire could see the imprint of a new confidence settling among her colleagues, and it began to ripple outward, buoying her own spirit. Yet in the thick of progress, nature relinquished a wild reminder of its power. As she knelt once again beside the leopard remains, the earth rumbled ominously, and icy shards splintered from the surface. We need to stabilize our finds, keep documenting, but let's ensure our footing is secure, she called out, the steady cadence of leadership surging within her. This time, not driven solely by fear, but by a clarity of purpose. In the hours that followed, they melded scientific rigor with an artistic lens, piecing together narratives within the framework of careful analysis. Claire knew they were connected finally, not just as a research team, but as descendants of a world that craved preservation and understanding. Yet, shadows of self-doubt continued to linger. Was she genuinely prepared to face the backlashes of going against tradition? Each heartbeat reminded her of the stakes, but an unexpected surge of resolve propelled her forward. She was not just scrabbling for her father's acknowledgement anymore, but crafting a legacy for herself, one steeped in authenticity and passion. By dusk, with the sky painted in brilliant hues, Claire gathered her team for one final huddle. This moment is crucial. We've uncovered more than remnants. We've illuminated stories that need to be told, images that must resonate with others, she implored them, her heart racing with palpable excitement. As they shared laughter and ideas around the campfire that night, connecting over their mutual aspirations rather than grappling with inadequacies, Claire felt something shift profoundly within her. She realized the acceptance she had sought from her father had begun to dissolve. She was stepping into her own narrative. No longer was she simply the daughter of an explorer, but a recognized figure in her essence, an amalgamation of scientific rigor intertwined with compassion and storytelling. The following morning, the cold air sliced lightly as Claire stood in front of her team, who had begun to draft their research paper with fervent enthusiasm. She presented her vision one final time, still grappling with everything it meant. "We are not just researchers, we are storytellers. We preserve not just the past but advocate for a future." She felt the impact of her voice resonate with strength, not just as a statement but as a vow to reshape their narrative. In that moment, Claire conquered not only the echo of her past fears, but also established a new role as a leader who embraced vulnerability while championing resilience. After weeks of toil, she had cultivated a legacy steeped in authenticity, not just toward academia but toward herself. Far from home and her father's shadow, she stood tall and resolute, ready to preserve the stories waiting to be told. This was her moment to shine brightly in the frozen wilderness and beyond. So I urge you now, you need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that can inspire you to overcome your own challenges. Please leave a like now. It fuels the algorithm that allows us to keep sharing these transformative journeys. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Claire's evolution. It means the world to us to hear your insights. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and feel empowered. Let's spread these stories together.